19th century saw many great inventions like a car, a light bulb, and of course Coca-Cola. Everybody was optimistic and confident that nothing can go wrong. I mean, look at the mustache of these men. Everyone was optimistic that 20th century was gonna start off great. I wanna go war. Everyone was nervous because they knew a big war was coming soon. France wanted to take back some territory that they lost to Germany, and Germany wanted to take over the world. Also, they were trying to expand their navy, and that made Britain quite nervous. In the Balkans, many nations have been declaring independence with the help of Russia, and that pissed off Austria Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. They wanted to preserve their empires, and they also shared their hatred for Russia. Furthermore, Serbia wanted the liberation of all the southern Slavs from Austria Hungary. To add fuel to the fire, European powers formed alliances, meaning when the war breaks out, it will get pretty ugly. Franz Ferdinand decided that it would be a great idea if he visited Sarajevo to ease the tensions in the province of Bosnia. He made one little mistake though. His car's route was literally published in the newspaper. Some assassins saw this and were waiting for him. One threw the bomb at his car and missed, but he injured one of his officers. So Franz Ferdinand decided to visit the officer in the hospital, but the driver took a wrong turn and ended up beside one of the assassins who killed Ferdinand. Austria-Hungary suspected that Serbia had something to do with it, so they sent them an impossible ultimatum, and when Serbia rejects, they declare war on them. Austria-Hungary and Germany are allies, and Serbia is good friends with Russia, who is allied with France, so everyone declares war on everyone. Germany wants to avoid war on two fronts, so they have a plan. They will move 80% of their troops into France, defeat France, and then they will move the rest of the troops into Russia while they are getting ready, defeat them, and then they will win the war. One small problem though, France's border with Germany is heavily fortified, and Germany has no time to fight through France's defenses, so they decide to go through neutral Belgium. Although they put up a decent fight, Belgian army is no match for the superior German army. UK, who up to this point decided to stay out of the war, decided to join because they guaranteed Belgian independence. What is worse for Germany is that Russia is ready for war earlier than they have expected, and it turns out that Austria-Hungary really sucks at fighting, so Germany has to help them out. Back on the Western Front, Germany was advancing and they were in reach of Paris, but then, while attacking, a gap opened up and Germans were pushed back. Any hope of quick win for the Germans vanished. Hoping to increase the support for war, Allies started fierce propaganda campaign portraying Germans as barbarians and aggressors. Allies and Germans then tried to outflank each other, but then they got stuck in a stalemate, so both of them dig into defensive positions, and this was the beginning of the trench warfare. Here's a little lore of the trench warfare. Two sides face each other within no man's land, and being in between. To win, one side either needs to be overrun, or one of the armies has to give up. Thousands would die for barely any territorial gains. This type of warfare usually favored the defenders, so it was very frustrating for the Germans. To combat this, the Germans decided to use Zeppelin air raids on London and Paris to try to break the deadlock. It didn't do much damage as soon the raids would stop. Before the war, a conference was held to decide the rules of modern warfare, and using chemical weapons was not allowed. I will definitely not use chemical weapons. You promised? I promise. Germans then decided to ignore this and they started using mustard gas anyway. And to this day it is remembered as one of the worst horrors of the First World War. Meanwhile, in the Balkans, Austria-Hungary still couldn't win against Serbia. They managed to capture Belgrade, but quickly lost it on a counterattack, so they were looking for help. Bulgaria had some ties to Germany and was happy to take some territory they thought it belonged to them. So together they knock out Serbia. Many civilians and military personnel retreated through Albania and to Greece when they then escaped by sea. Germany and Allies were frustrated that war was taking so long, so they decided to find new friends to help them win the war. Central Powers received boost when Ottoman Empire joined their side. Allies were not just sitting around though, they managed to convince Japan and Italy to join them. Italy previously had alliance with Germany and Austria Hungary, but they decided to switch the sides because it was a defensive alliance. And also they were promised a lot of new land. Allies then tried to strike into Ottoman heartland in the campaign of Gallipoli, but it was a big disaster. Ottoman got pushed back by the Russians and they failed to advance into Egypt. They needed someone to blame, and that would turn out to be ethnic Armenians living in their territory. In the following Armenian genocide, around 600,000 to 1 million Armenians were killed or deported. Germany then tried to convince Muslims in India to initiate a rebellion, but to the surprise, support for the British was high. Many people from British Raj served in the British Army and made significant contribution to the war effort. Hoping to disrupt Allied supply line, Germany began to sink Allied supply ships with their submarines. For now though, conditions on the front were brutal and the disease was rapid. Psychological damage on the soldiers was severe, and it's insane that millions of soldiers and civilians dedicated their lives to protect their homelands. For a very long time, not much happened on the fronts, so Allies decided to change that. Japan was looking to build itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take German islands and colonies in Asia. Allies also launched an offensive in Africa to take German colonies there. To help with the lack of men, Germany enlisted local citizens to wage all-out guerrilla warfare. Back in Europe, the continent was about to see the most brutal fighting up to that point. Germans were advancing to the city of Verdun. French defended it with everything they had, and they were suffering immense losses. They were losing thousands by the day, and it is a battle that best describes World War I. They needed Britain to do something now, so the British launched their own brutal offense at the Somme. They lost around 60,000 men on just the first day, and this was the first time the tank was used, and they were super effective and not working properly. Russians weren't seeing much success either. They had a great offensive going for them, but pretty soon they ran out of supplies and got pushed back. Italy thought that it was a great idea to jump in and get that easy victory, but that didn't happen and they got stuck. Romania also tried to jump in and get that quick victory, and he got pushed back as well. In Austria Hungary, many nationalities were unhappy with living under Austria Hungary, and they wanted to break away and form their own nation under aesthetic lines. This was terrible news for Austria Hungary since basically a million different nationalities lived there. Their Balkan territory were especially unstable since the Slavic population wanted to have their own united country. To make things even worse for Austria Hungary, their emperor Franz Joseph died and was replaced by Charles I. Germany saw that their ally was falling apart, so they wanted to get some new allies to try to win the war. King of Greece was looking at the chaos that was happening, and he decided that he wanted to join the Central Powers. Wow, not so fast. I want to join the Allies. What are you gonna do? Fire me? I'm the king. What are you gonna do? Fire me? People elected me. So for a while Greece had a brief national schism where Greece was divided between on what side to join the war. But then the king abdicated and the decision was made. Greece was gonna fight on the side of the Allies in this world war. The year is 1917 and everybody is exhausted. There was mutiny in the French army, Russia was rapidly running out of supplies, Germans were starving because of the British blockade, and they were becoming increasingly unhappy and violent, some of whom wanted a full of socialist revolution. Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire were falling apart in real time. Ottomans were particularly concerned about British landings in Mesopotamia because there was a lot of oil there. Furthermore, Britain promised Arabs these lands if they helped them fight the Ottomans. Spoiler alert, Britain lied. Now with all of these facts in mind, it shouldn't surprise you that some sooner or later would pull out of the war. Now the real question was, who will that be? Take a guess. You have 3 seconds. And the answer is Russia. Russians were tired of being oppressed and not having food, so they decided to have their own revolution. First of all, they overthrew their emperor, and then the new government got overthrown by the communists, who pulled out of the war. This was fantastic for Germany, and maybe, just maybe, they could win this war. But they made one little mistake though. They saw that the United States was looking increasingly likely like they're gonna join the war. So Germany decided to send telegrams to Mexico in which they asked them to attack the USA. One problem though, Britain saw this telegram and showed it to the USA. And this was it. The United States declared war on Germany. Germany was like, they got pretty desperate, so they decided to try to force France to surrender before the American troops arrived. They tried hard but to not avail, and when the Americans arrived, they knew they lost the war. Austria Hungary and Bulgaria got pushed back by the Allies in the Balkans, and Ottoman Empire got pushed back in the Middle East. This was a total collapse of the Central Powers. Bulgaria surrendered first, then the Ottoman Empire, then the Austria Hungary, and on November the 11th, 1914, Germany surrendered. Also, 40 million people lost their lives. The peace treaty was harsh on Germany. They got into a ton of debt and had to reduce their army to 100,000 soldiers and were forbidden from having an air force. This all made Germans pretty angry, and this will lead to the rise of the certain mustache man. Austria-Hungary stopped existing and a bunch of new nations were made. Man, Italy has been betrayed. We were promised all of this, but at the end we only got this. Italy should reconquer old territories of the Roman Empire and recapture its old glory, and I should be the one leading it. Okay, so is this your final order? Can you add extra fries on the side, please?